Hey there, it's Will Vaughan from Your Career Mastery, and in this video, we're going to be talking about how I overcame my fear of public speaking. So public speaking is one of those things where they talk about most people actually fear public speaking more than death. Now that's obviously a little bit extreme, but I think most people would admit that when it comes to public speaking, for the most part, that's an area that generates a lot of anxiety and a lot of nerves for a lot of people out there. So in this video, I want to share some of my tips and sort of my journey around how I overcame not all of my nerves and anxiety when it comes to public speaking, because I think actually a little bit of nerves and a little bit of anxiety is a good thing, but how I overcame them to the point where before it was debilitating, and now I actually feel quite comfortable and confident when it comes to presenting in front of a group of people. But before we get into the tips, I did want to share that public speaking was not something that absolutely came naturally to me. Definitely for some people, you can see that public speaking is something that flows very effortlessly for them, and they feel naturally very confident. I was definitely not one of those people, either in high school, university, or in my professional career. Public speaking is something that I've had to work at and develop consciously over time. That's why I think my tips will stand to help you, because I've actually come from a place where public speaking was not an easy area for me, but I'm in a point now where I'm quite comfortable. And I would go through the whole routine that many people do with clammy hands, vomit on your sweater already, mum's spaghetti, to quote 8 Mile. I would get the dry throat, the heart is racing, all of the symptoms that you'd normally get when you get nervous before public speaking. But the tips I'm going to share in this video have really helped me become a more confident and calm speaker. So let's get into the tips. Tip number 1, super basic, but essentially it is to do it more. Public speaking is one of those things that if you do it once a year, you're never really going to conquer your skill in that area, but you're also never going to conquer really the nerves that can overcome you in the lead up to a presentation and whilst doing a presentation. So you need to do it more. You need to hit that muscle again and again and again and really build it, because it is one of those things where through repetition, through exposure, you will develop a skill and you will develop confidence in that particular area. And this is just common sense, right? If you go to the gym once or twice a year, you're never going to get jacked. You're never going to build big muscles. And if you go for a run twice a year, you're never going to really build a robust set of fitness. And the same goes to public speaking and really any professional skill. If you want to get better at it, you have to do it more. But that doesn't mean that you have to present to a large group of people every single week. You can find opportunities all throughout the year, every month, every week, to present to both large and small groups of people, because many of the skills required to present to a small group of people are actually the same when it comes to presenting to a large group of people. It's just the scale is bigger. It's just how you have to manage your eye contact and things like that changes. But the basics of putting a good presentation together, structuring it logically, communicating it simply and effectively, taking into account the audience that you're presenting to, being prepared, being rehearsed, these are all the fundamentals that will help you whether you're presenting to a small group of people or to a large group of people. So that's tip number 1, is to simply do it more and don't pass up opportunities that might seem small or not very substantial, because all of these little incidences will build up towards building that muscle of public speaking, becoming more confident and having more ease, because you can actually, and I know I've experienced this personally, you can be more nervous presenting to a small group of people than you can be to a large group of people, because sometimes it can depend on who you're presenting to. For example, I've been more nervous to present to a group of 5 people than I was to a group of about 50, because those 5 people were some of the most senior people in the business, and you can bet your bottom dollar, I really wanted to make sure that that talk was successful. So it doesn't necessarily depend on the largeness of the group that you're presenting to, but who you're presenting to. But either way, you should always bring the same level of quality and preparation and expertise and professionalism to whatever group you're going to be presenting to, whether it's big or small, senior, junior, whatever it is. Tip number 2 about how I overcame my fear of public speaking and how you can in general become a more professional and confident public speaker is about doing it for longer. See, one of the biggest breakthroughs that I had for me in my professional speaking and my presentation and my public speaking journey was all about a workshop that I ran in the last couple of years. So this was a workshop for about 40 people in the business. I ran it twice, one with sales, one with marketing, and it ran for about 2 to 3 hours. And this exposure over this length of time, I'd never presented for that length of time before, but being in front of this group of people for that length of time, it allowed me to get comfortable in the space. It allowed me to get at ease, to calm down a bit, to relax my breathing, to engage with the group, to make sure that I met everyone's eye in the group as I was presenting, to make sure that I stopped, took a breath, made sure I gave space for questions, and made sure that I could take stock of the room as I was presenting to make sure that everyone was following what I was talking about, to make sure that everything made sense. And I can't undersell the impact of having presented in front of a group of people for that length of time in one particular session, how that ingrained almost into like my nervous system, that sense of being at ease, that sense of being calm in front of a large group of people, and that has stayed with me. That session and that exposure really inbuilt a sense of confidence and ease and calmness when it comes to presenting in front of a group of people. It sort of like flipped a switch in my brain to say public speaking is a safe space. No one's going to attack you. No one's going to put you on the spot, or they might, but even if they do, nothing bad is going to happen. And again, the more you can be prepared and be rehearsed and know the material that you're presenting inside and out, the more that's going to set you up for feeling at ease and feeling confident, because you don't have to think about why you're presenting in terms of thinking about the material as much as you can focus on delivering a great presentation to the group that you're talking to. Tip number 4 for improving your public speaking skills is all about knowing your material. You need to know 1,000 times more about the material that you're presenting than what you're actually presenting. That will make you feel incredibly confident in the material, because when you're presenting, like I said, you're going to be nervous, your heart's going to be racing, your breathing might be off. You need to take time, especially at the start of the presentation, to calm down. But in order to find your rhythm and to find your groove when you're presenting, you need to know that material better than anyone else. You need to be so confident in the material that when you're not feeling confident, you can still deliver it confidently. Now, this is all about building that muscle memory, and that's why it's so important that you need to rehearse all of your material again and again and again in the days, weeks, hours leading up to your presentation. You want to make sure that you know every single detail on that slide deck that you're presenting inside and out. You need to make sure that you've anticipated any questions that might come up so that you've minimized the risk of curveball questions or the certain people in the room picking apart areas of your presentation. You want to have all of your bases covered. And again, that's why you want to take time to rehearse the material, understand the flow. When you're on a slide, you want to know what's coming in the presentation. You want to know what your next steps in the presentation are going to be, because that will help you have flow and have a logical consistency throughout the presentation that again gives you confidence in the material that you're presenting, but it also helps put your audience at ease if they know that you are an expert in your subject matter, and that will make them feel more comfortable and more at ease with you, and it'll make you feel more comfortable with them. And it's sort of this symbiotic process that happens when you're presenting. Because again, it's so important when you're presenting not to just throw material at people. If you're in the room with them, you want to take time to look at them to understand what seems like they missed something. What might seem like you need to explain it either better or more clearly or in a different way. And again, if you're presenting material to different audiences, that is why it's so important to consider your audience, because you might need to alter your presentation to make the content more meaningful and more applicable to a particular audience that you're presenting to, right? So tip number 3 was all about knowing your content inside and out completely, because that's going to make you more confident when you go to actually present the material in front of a group of people. And tip number 4, I wanted to share some examples of the kinds of forums where you can do presentations to build your skills and start really building that muscle in a way that's going to give you a lot of long-term benefit, not just in the short term, but also in the long term of your career, because it's obviously a really important career skill. So the first example is workshops. So the example that I talked about before, in terms of the workshop and the experience that gave me a lot of really ingrained comfort and ease and confidence when it came to public speaking, was hosting a 2 to 3 hour workshop. So if you're running a training session or a capability session or a strategy session or a deep dive or a brainstorm or some sort of mastermind within your business or a committee or a council, whatever it is, the longer you can speak, with obviously not speaking for an entire day, but if you can hold a 1 hour to 1.5 hour session, that will help give you a lot of experience presenting in front of a group of people and give you that time during the presentation to settle into it, to feel at ease, to feel confident. And the more you can be presenting to a group of people and settle into that feeling of comfort and ease and confidence, and embed that, in your sort of neurology, in your nervous system, and really ingrain that feeling and remind your brain that it's a safe space to be presenting in front of a group of people. There's really nothing to be afraid of. And if you can collect yourself confidently, then even if curveball questions or things come up, or you forget your words or you stumble your words, it's totally fine. nothing's going to happen. The SWAT team isn't going to come in through the roof and take you away. You find that it's a totally safe arena. You can relax, you can breathe, everything is going to be fine. But you can also hold lunch and learns where people come in a meeting, they eat their lunch, and you can present something about what your team is working on, maybe a test and learn or an insight or a strategy session. Again, something that you want to showcase, something that you did in your team or a project you worked on that many people might find benefit from. But then there's also just simply presenting in your team meetings or going into other teams' meetings and presenting, again, findings or insights that might be relevant to them. There are plenty of forums throughout the corporate world where you can improve your public speaking skills. The most important thing is to actually put your hand up and do it, because the more you put it off and the more senior you become, the weirder it's going to be if you don't have those public speaking skills dialed in. Because if you want to become more senior, they will expect you to have calmness and confidence when it comes to public speaking, because it is obviously a really important leadership trait and an important capability that leaders need to have. Well, I'm Will Vaughan from Your Career Master. I hope you found this video helpful. Highly encourage you to get out there and improve your public speaking skills, because it is a skill that will help you not just in your professional life, but also in your personal life as well. If you've got any questions, any feedback, leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you got value from the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.